Hello. This session here is going to look at data analysis and graphing, and it's in Excel, but in this particular case, I'm going to use something different. I'm using the Google Spreadsheet tool to do this. So what we're going to look at is this idea of if I've got some data. In this case, I'm looking at a relationship between in 3 experiments between the temperature of the experiment and the emission of a gas X from a product. And I'm going to have a number of tasks I want to do with this data, just like you would in the real world based on your science experiments. I've got 3 tasks. I've got task 1, task 2, task 3. The task 1 is looking at the descriptive statistics. So the idea here of the descriptive statistics is they're very powerful at being able to give us a handle of what's happening within the data, and become even more powerful, of course, when we get very large data sets. And we can look things like the average, the mean, or the mode. How often a number comes up, or the median, where in the point, or the minimum value, or the maximum value, or something called the standard deviation. Now, I'm not going to go into question 2 on task 1. That will come through in another activity where you've got to try to understand or explain what it means in terms of the standard deviation being different in one experiment than another. Okay, and that's really trying to get you to understand what do we mean by the term standard deviation. That will be part of a different assignment or a different assignment submission. Task 2 is just trying to say, well, actually, we can take, now we've got data, we can visualize the data as a bar chart, and that's going to be creating a bar chart and labeling it appropriately and saving that bar chart, so later on you'll be able to include it in a presentation or report or something like that. Task 3 is looking at the scatter plots. Again, another way of visualizing a relationship within data between 2 variables, and we're going to look at scatter plots from two of the experiments we're talking about. And we're going to try and calculate something called the R squared value, which is the line of is a number that visualizes or represents the best fit. So you can either do it as a line of best fit or when you're coming up with a number. And finally, we're going to start, or you'll start to think about, well, how can you interpret these scatter plots in terms of what are they showing you with the relationship between temperature, in this particular example, between temperature and gas emissions. So 3 typical tasks you're likely to achieve. We're going to use Excel, or in this case, Google, to do the crunching for us, to create the charts, the visualizations, and then you'd explain them elsewhere. If you need any help, you'll find your help there. I will put a link into it there. So let's have a look at what we've got in terms of the data first. Well, as I say, we've got some data. 3 experiments went on here, A, B, and C, and these produced this amount of gas being emitted from the product or the material at these temperature ranges. So temperatures there is going through, and then this is the emissions coming from there. We've got these. I've also put down here, we want to calculate the mean, the minimum, the maximum, the median, which is the midpoint of that range, the mode, which would be if a number occurred more than once, what's the number that occurs most times within that data set, the standard deviation, and the range. And the range, of course, is the difference between the maximum value and the minimum value. Now, I've put down the Google functions here that you're going to use for those. Range hasn't got one, so you're going to have to we're going to manually create that. And then what we're going to try and do is make sure everything's at 2 decimal places. For experiment A, once we finish experiment A, I'm going to copy what we've done from this column point cell to the other cells. Okay, so let's just get on with it and see how it works out. So I'm going to do a formula in Google, and it's the same in Excel. So I'm going to put the equal sign to indicate it's a formula. And then if I look at my Google functions, I know mean is average. Yeah, and this is the numerical average value in a data set, and it ignores the text. Brilliant. So that's what I want. The next thing the system will want to know, of course, is, well, what's your data set? And for us, that's the data set. So I just keep my finger down and all the way down to there, and that's the data set. And that tells me that I have a mean of 33.17. That's the mean value, or the average value, should I say, across the data set. Now, if I want to calculate the minimum, I go for minimum, and it says, right, the minimum value in the data set, thank you, what's my data set? That's 19, so that's the minimum value, and I can eyeball that. I can see straight away, yeah, that is the smallest value because I put them in that order. I can look at my maximum, and now we can know what will happen. We're expecting the maximum here to be 51 if I look at that data, because that's the largest value in that data set. That can be 51. The median yeah, which is the value that is the mid-range. It's 30. The mode, which will be the one that's most commonly occurs. Now, if I look at that data set, I can see that there's no number that occurs more than once. Hence, I'm getting not applicable. And if I look at the error, it says you cannot produce this because no value occurs more than once. Fine. Now I can do the standard deviation. You're probably itching for me to explain what the standard deviation is, but it's not the job of this tutorial to talk through that. So you're going to have to bear with it or find it out yourself. That's the standard deviation in that data set. And then I'm going to calculate the range. Okay. And the range is, I say, is the maximum minus the minimum. So I'm going to find, well, I'm saying the maximum value I know is this one, that in that cell, and I'm going to minus the minimum value, which is in that cell. We can 52, 32.2. Brilliant. Now, I've set those up to give me a flavour of... So I'm going to copy all that column, and then I'm just going to paste it. And what it'll do is reproduce it all the way through. Now, this was set up earlier, and I've actually got these into 2 decimal places. But they won't necessarily be 2 decimal places. So if they weren't 2 decimal places, what would I do? Well, I'd highlight the cells that I want. I do 2 decimal places because it's just easier to read. And then up here, I've got the increase or the decrease of decimal places. So I could go bigger or I could go smaller. Okay, great. So that's task 1 completed. These are the descriptive stats across these 3 experiments. Now, task 2 asked us to calculate or create, shall I say, a bar chart. So this is a visualization of the data. Instead of having it in columns, in tables like this, there might be a way of visualizing what's happening in the data to find patterns, etc. And very common, you'd create a bar chart and then you'd use that in a report. So to create my bar chart, firstly, I'm going to highlight the data sources I'm going to use. So that's my titles, and these are all my lovely values. And then I'm going to click on the insert chart, or I could go to insert the long way around and click on chart. And then up comes the approach here. So I'm going to use row 3 as headers. That makes sense, isn't it? That's temperature experiment, that's in row 3. But I want to use column A, this bit, as my labels. Yeah, so I don't want this to be, at the moment, it's plotting them on the chart. I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to pick that. And I'm then also going to pick a column chart. So I want it to be a bar chart. Yeah, and that's my column chart there. Cool. So this is starting to work it up. Now, I've got what I expect, which is that's the vertical axis. These are my 3 experiments in different colors. And these are the temperatures running along the bottom. So let's add that information. So I'm going to click on, in this case, I'm going to click on customize. And there's my chart title there. And I want to put in a nice chart title. Okay. So that's fine there. The legend is this thing up here. Let's put it to the right. That's great. I could put it to the bottom. Yeah, which may that's depending on how much space you want to use. I'm not going to bother going through, but you can do things like trying to stack them together or put them in compare modes, or just to maximize the size of the space and what you're seeing. I'm not going to bother with that. Now it says the horizontal axis here. That's what I'm going along. I want that. I know that to be the temperature. Okay. I could also say, well, the minimum temperature I know is 5. And I could put in a maximum temperature as well, and that shunts it down. But I'm actually going to just keep that out. Keep it as it is. So that's my temperature there. For some reason, I've kind of been messing around. And it's put my legend now because I maximize the inside. So I just say, no, I don't want it at the top. Inside, I want it at the bottom. I would click on that. I've got my series there. Absolutely fine. Now I just need to put in, it says temperature, which is there, axis there, horizontal. Fine. Okay. Now, something I could also do, if I so wish, is put in something called the error bars. Yeah? And what they show you will give you a feeling is in the sense that you will be pulling on the same data that you would pull on for your standard deviations. So they'll put the errors there. However, for this one, for the sake of just doing a bar chart that's just in the side, I'm very happy with that. Okay. And then I'll click on Insert, and that's my chart there, which I'm going to move over to this point here. Okay. Now, if I wanted to download it, because I've created it now, if I wanted to download it to use it in a report, for in Google, there's this little click down here, and there's just a Save Image As. And if I click on Save Image As, you might see image saved down here, and it's saving it to my desktop, and I can reuse it. Brilliant. Now, task 3 wants us to do something different. Task 3 wants us to draw a scatter plot, but only for experiment A and B. So again, because I'm doing a chart, I'm going to take the 3 here, only A and B this time. This time I'm going to click on go to Insert Chart. And I'm going to look around the types of charts I can do. Yeah, so I'm going to first off click on that and say, well, actually, I want a scatter. Yeah, and what sort of scatter do I want? I've got 2 types, either a bubble one or just a standard scatter. That's the standard scatter I want. Brilliant. And we can already see then what it's doing is putting them up there. And the red ones are experiment B, so things are looking fine at the moment. And I'm going to use row 3 as my headers. So experiment A and experiment B, fine. Now, let's customize this. So again, give it a chart title. Emissions, lovely. Horizontal axis there, and I'm going to call that, of course, I'm just going to call that temperature to give you a sense of what we've done here. I've got my series is in there, that's fine there. Now I can put on a linear trend line. That's for experiment A, and I'm going to show the R value. And that's put it in trend line for experiment A, and this is the R value. And this now, and once I've done that, I'm going to pick experiment B, and I'm going to do exactly the same. So the trend line, I can have linear, exponential, or polynomial, is just really the line of best fit. And as I said about the R, we said about the R value, show R value, I lost it then. If I've shown the R value, we can see here the line of best fit is drawn through the data. So the line of best fit for experiment B, because that's closer to 1, they're both really high. So they're both very close to the data. If it was less than, if we're down at 0.5 or something like that, there'd be some anxieties. But these are very good lines of best fit. I've got the trend line and I've got these 2 R values there. Okay. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you find that helpful. What will happen next, of course, is I will build up or give you a data set of different data, which for those on the course at UCS in the Science and Technology division will complete and submit via their Learn UCS module, and will get ticked off and signed off for this skill set in the first place. Okay, thank you very much.